Ladies and gentlemen, today I bring you a message of hope and resilience, a message to remind you that no matter how dark the night may seem, dawn is coming. Life, with all its unexpected twists and turns, has a way of testing our resolve, stretching us beyond what we think we can bear. But I want you to hold on to this truth: don't quit. This is not the end. God is not finished with your story yet. He is about to open a new chapter for you, one that will transform every trial you faced into a testimony of His faithfulness. Challenges and setbacks, though difficult, are never without purpose. In fact, they are often the very tools God uses to prepare us for something greater. If you've ever observed how diamonds are formed, you'll know that they are created under immense pressure. The raw material doesn't look like much at first, but the pressure and heat transform it into something invaluable. Similarly, the pressures in your life are not there to destroy you, they are there to refine you. What you are going through may not make sense now, but every challenge, every tear, every moment of uncertainty is shaping you for a destiny far beyond what you can imagine. It's easy to look at setbacks and feel like they are signs of failure, but I encourage you to shift your perspective. These moments of difficulty are not the end of your journey, they are simply part of the process. Just as a seed must first be buried in the dark soil before it can sprout and grow, so must we sometimes walk through seasons of darkness to reach the light. It's in those hidden places, those moments of struggle, that God does His greatest work in us. When you feel buried, you're not being forgotten, you're being planted. And what is being planted? Purpose. God never allows you to go through pain without a reason. The challenges you face are preparation for the great things He has in store for you. Think of Joseph in the Bible. He went from the pit to the prison before he ever reached the palace. At any point, Joseph could have given up. He could have thrown in the towel and decided that his dreams were impossible. But instead, he held on to his faith even when his circumstances seemed hopeless. Why? Because he understood that his pain was part of a larger purpose. You may be in a season where nothing seems to be going right. Perhaps you've experienced rejection, loss, or disappointment. You may feel like your efforts have been in vain, like every door you knock on remains closed. But let me assure you, just because things aren't happening the way you expected doesn't mean they aren't happening. God's timing is not our timing, and His ways are higher than our ways. What you see as a setback, God sees as a setup for something extraordinary. Have you ever watched an artist at work? From up close, the strokes of the brush may look random, chaotic even. But when you step back and look at the bigger picture, you see the masterpiece taking shape. That's how God works in our lives. The pieces may not seem to fit now, but when He steps back and reveals the full picture, you'll see that every stroke, every trial, every challenge was part of a divine design. When you understand this, you begin to see your challenges differently. They are not there to defeat you, but to develop you. They build strength, character, and resilience. Like a potter shaping clay, God uses pressure to mold us into vessels that can carry His purpose. But here's the key: you have to stay on the wheel. You have to trust the process, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it hurts. Now, I won't stand here and tell you it's easy. It's not. There will be days when you want to give up, when the weight of life feels too heavy to carry. But in those moments, remember this: the greatest victories often come after the hardest battles. The enemy attacks most fiercely when he knows you're close to a breakthrough. So if you're feeling the heat, take heart. It's a sign that God is about to move in your life in a powerful way. Think about the story of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Before it can take flight, it must go through the struggle of emerging from its cocoon. That struggle is not an accident, it's a necessary process. Without it, the butterfly's wings would not be strong enough to fly. The same is true for you. The struggles you face are not there to crush you, but to strengthen you for what lies ahead. So don't quit. Don't let the weight of your current circumstances convince you that your story is over. Your story is still being written, and the author of your life has plans to prosper you, not to harm you. He has plans to give you a hope and a future. But you have to trust Him. You have to keep moving forward, even when it feels like all hope is lost. Remember, pain is temporary, but purpose is eternal. Every great achievement is preceded by great struggle. The heroes we admire, the successes we celebrate, all have one thing in common: they refused to quit. They endured the process, and because of that, they reaped the reward. And so will you? Hold on, my friends. God is about to open a new chapter in your life, one that will make every moment of pain worthwhile. Don't quit. Your best days are ahead. It's easy to become consumed by the challenges we face in the present or the failures of the past. Our minds can easily fixate on missed opportunities, past mistakes, or dreams that seem to have been lost. But I want you to understand something profound today. Vision is the power that propels you forward, and focusing on what lies ahead is the key to unlocking your future. Vision is not just about seeing with your eyes, it's about seeing with your heart, your spirit, and your faith. It's the ability to look beyond your current circumstances and see the possibility of something greater. When you have a clear vision of where you are going, you no longer get distracted by the things that are behind you. The past may have shaped you, but it does not define you. Your vision defines you. The world will try to hold you captive by your past. People will remind you of your failures, your missteps, and your shortcomings. They may tell you that you're not qualified, not good enough, or not capable of achieving greatness. But you must remember this: the opinions of others cannot define your future unless you allow them to. The vision God has placed in your heart is greater than the limitations others try to place on you. And it is certainly greater than the limitations you place on yourself. Look at the life of Abraham. He was called to leave everything he knew, everything that was familiar, to follow a promise he could not yet see. God gave him a vision of a land he was meant to inherit, but that vision required faith to leave behind the comfort of the past and to trust that God was leading him to something better. If Abraham had continued to dwell on his past, on the life he left behind, he would have missed out on the promise God had for him. But because he focused on the vision, on the future that God had promised, he became the father of many nations. You too have a vision. Perhaps it's not yet clear, or maybe the road ahead seems uncertain. But I challenge you today, don't get so caught up in your past that you miss what God is doing in your future. The past cannot offer you any more opportunities. It is gone. What lies ahead, what God has prepared for you, is where your focus should be. If you want to move forward, you must stop looking in the rearview mirror. It's impossible to drive forward while constantly looking back. It doesn't matter how many wrong turns you've taken, how many times you've been hurt, or how many failures you've experienced. Your vision is your future, and your future is bright because it is secured by the promises of God. A powerful example of this principle is the story of Lot's wife. As they were fleeing from the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, she was instructed not to look back. But she couldn't help herself. She turned her gaze back at the destruction she was leaving behind, and as a result, she was turned into a pillar of salt. This story serves as a cautionary tale. When you keep looking back, you risk missing the blessings God is trying to give you in the present and future. God was calling them to safety, to a better life, but she let her past hold her hostage. This is not just a lesson from the Bible, it's a principle for living. If you focus on your past mistakes, regrets, or the things you've lost, you will miss the opportunities waiting for you in the present and future. Your life is ahead of you, not behind you. Vision also fuels perseverance. When you know where you're going, it gives you the strength to keep going, even when things get tough. It's easy to quit when the road is unclear and the destination seems distant. But when you have a clear picture of where you're headed, you keep moving forward, even in the face of adversity. This is why it is so important to cultivate and protect your vision. It will be tested, and it will be challenged. People will doubt you, and circumstances may seem to tell a different story. But you must hold on to the vision God has placed in your heart. The more you focus on what lies ahead, the more the obstacles of today lose their power over you. Now, I want you to think about the Apostle Paul. Despite being imprisoned, beaten, and persecuted, he never lost sight of his vision. His vision wasn't based on his present circumstances, it was based on the calling that God had placed on his life. Paul didn't let temporary setbacks or challenges stop him from pursuing his purpose. And because he focused on the vision, his life became a testimony of God's faithfulness and power. He wrote letters from prison that still inspire and encourage millions of believers today. Paul knew the power of vision. You too have that same power. You have the ability to see beyond your present moment, to see beyond your challenges, and to envision the future God has prepared for you. But you must choose to focus on that vision. You must choose to move forward, not allowing the distractions of the past to pull you back. As you move forward, let your vision be your guide. Let it fuel your actions, decisions, and thoughts. And as you do, remember that your vision is not something you must figure out alone. God is with you, guiding you and leading you toward His purposes for your life. Focus on Him, focus on His promises, and trust that He will bring the vision to fruition. When you focus on what lies ahead, you will begin to walk into a future full of purpose, hope, and divine opportunity. Keep your eyes on the prize, and let your vision propel you forward into the life God has prepared for you. Life is full of seasons of growth, seasons of struggle, and seasons of rest. We all go through different times in our lives, and sometimes it feels like we're stuck in a particular season that seems to never end. But I want to remind you today that difficult times are temporary. Just as the seasons of the earth change, so too will the seasons in your life. What you're experiencing right now will not last forever. There is a new season on the horizon, and God is in control of that timing. Think about the natural world. The winter doesn't last forever, even though it may feel like it will when you're in the middle of the cold and dark days. But soon, the first signs of spring begin to appear. The flowers start to bloom, the days grow longer, and the air becomes warmer. Spring comes not because we've earned it, but because it is the natural progression of time. In the same way, the difficult season you may be experiencing is not permanent. Just as winter gives way to spring, your struggles will give way to peace, to breakthrough, and to growth. When we're going through hardship, it's easy to forget that seasons change. We get so caught up in the current struggle that we lose sight of the fact that nothing lasts forever. The pain you are feeling, the challenges you are facing, and the obstacles in your path are not permanent fixtures in your life. Just as the earth goes through cycles, your life does too. There will be times of plenty and times of scarcity, times of joy and times of sorrow, times of strength and times of weakness. But none of these seasons are meant to last forever. The book of Ecclesiastes tells us that to everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. There is a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. This is not just a poetic observation, it is a truth of life. Every season serves a purpose, and every season has its end. If you are going through a difficult season, know this: it will not last forever. The same God who controls the natural seasons also controls the seasons of your life. Consider the example of Joseph in the Bible. His life is a powerful testimony of how seasons change. Joseph was sold into slavery by his own brothers, thrown into prison for something he didn't do, and faced many years of hardship and injustice. At times it seemed as if he would never escape his suffering. But Joseph held on to the truth that God had a purpose for him. He trusted that this season of his life, though painful, was only temporary. Eventually, God elevated him to a position of power in Egypt, and he was able to save not only his family but an entire nation. Joseph's story reminds us that even the longest, darkest seasons have an end. Right now, you may be in your own winter. Maybe you're facing financial struggles, a broken relationship, health issues, or emotional pain. It may feel like you're walking through a long, cold, and barren winter with no end in sight. But I encourage you to hold on, because just as the seasons change in nature, they will change in your life too. Spring is coming. Healing is coming. Breakthrough is coming. God is not finished with you yet. The key to navigating difficult seasons is to keep your perspective on the bigger picture. A tree in winter may appear lifeless, but deep beneath the surface, its roots are still alive, and it's only a matter of time before new life begins to emerge. In the same way, even when you can't see it on the outside, God is working in you. He is strengthening you, refining you, and preparing you for what is to come. Every season of difficulty is a season of preparation. You are being shaped for something greater, even if you don't fully understand it now. When we understand that seasons change, it gives us the strength to endure. It helps us to hold on during those moments when we feel like giving up. Instead of being consumed by the moment, we learn to look ahead with hope, knowing that God is faithful to bring about a change. He is faithful to turn things around. The pain you feel today will not last forever. The heartbreak, the struggle, the disappointment, these are temporary. You will emerge from this season stronger, wiser, and more equipped for the next chapter of your life. But it's not just about waiting for the season to change, it's about trusting God through the process. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know how the change will come. You just have to trust that it will come. And trust that God is with you in the season you're in. Trust that He is using this time to shape you, mold you, and prepare you for the new thing He has in store. Remember, seasons are not only a time for you to endure, but also a time for you to grow. The seasons of your life are opportunities for you to build your faith, strengthen your character, and develop the perseverance that will carry you through future challenges. You might not see the growth immediately, but just as a seed grows in the dark soil before it breaks through to the light, you are growing in ways that may not be visible to you right now. So when the season feels tough, hold on to the truth that seasons change. Trust that God is working in you, and that the storm you're facing today will soon pass. The dark clouds will give way to sunshine. The barren trees will blossom again. Your life, like the seasons, will move from one stage to the next, and the next chapter will be one of restoration, renewal, and growth. Keep moving forward, because your new season is coming. When we face overwhelming circumstances, it's natural to feel fear rising within us. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of what might happen next. These fears can paralyze us, making it difficult to move forward, to trust, or to believe that anything good can come from our current situation. But I want to remind you today that faith is always greater than fear. And it's in those moments when fear is loudest that God is calling us to step out in faith and trust in His perfect timing. The truth is, fear will always try to convince us that we're not equipped to handle the challenges before us. It will tell us that we're not strong enough, not capable enough, not smart enough to face the storm. But the Word of God tells us something different. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. These words aren't just comforting, they are a command. Fear has no place in our lives when we trust in the one who holds the universe in His hands. Faith, on the other hand, is the belief that God is in control, even when everything around us seems to be falling apart. It's the assurance that His plan for us is greater than our present circumstances. When we walk by faith, we choose to trust in divine timing, even when the situation seems impossible. We choose to believe that God will provide, even when we can't see the way. We choose to rest in the knowledge that He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything for our good. Think about the story of Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a child, but they had to wait many years before that promise came to pass. In the midst of their waiting, they faced fear, doubt, and discouragement. Sarah, in particular, struggled with the idea that she would ever become a mother, given her age. But God's timing was perfect. He did not forget His promise. He fulfilled it at the right moment, when it seemed most impossible. And He gave them a son, Isaac. Their story is a reminder that even when circumstances seem overwhelming, God is still faithful and His timing is always perfect. You might be in a season of waiting right now, a season where it feels like nothing is happening. Perhaps you've prayed and prayed for a breakthrough, and it seems like God is silent. You may feel like your dreams are slipping away, or that you've missed your chance. But I encourage you to hold on to faith. Divine timing is not always on our schedule. Just because things aren't happening the way we expect doesn't mean they're not happening at all. God is still working, even when we can't see it. Remember that God is never late. His timing is always right. In fact, His timing is one of the ways He shows us His wisdom and care. We may not understand why certain things happen when they do, but we can trust that He knows the perfect time for everything. When we choose faith over fear, we acknowledge that His plan is greater than our own understanding. When we're in the midst of overwhelming circumstances, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we are alone, that we have to handle everything on our own. But that's where faith comes in. Faith tells us that we are not alone. Faith tells us that God is with us in the storm. He hasn't abandoned us. He hasn't forgotten about us. His timing is never off. In fact, it is often in the moments when we feel most overwhelmed that God is preparing us for something greater. Think about the example of David. When he was chosen to be king, he wasn't immediately placed on the throne. Instead, he spent years in the wilderness, running from King Saul, living in fear for his life. During that time, David had every reason to give in to fear. He could have looked at the circumstances around him, the danger, the uncertainty, the isolation, and decided that God had forgotten His promise. But David chose faith over fear. He trusted that God had a purpose for his life and that in God's perfect timing the promise would come to pass. And it did. David became one of the greatest kings Israel ever had, but it happened in God's time, not his own. You may be feeling like you're in your own wilderness right now. You may be facing challenges that seem insurmountable, or you may be waiting for something that seems so far away. But take heart, God has not forgotten you. He has not abandoned you. His timing is always perfect, and He is preparing you for the breakthrough that is coming. Fear will always try to tell you that it's too late, that it's too hard, or that you're not ready. But faith tells you that God is always on time and that His plan for your life will unfold in His perfect timing. When we trust in divine timing, we acknowledge that God is in control and that He is working everything together for our good. There will be moments in life when the road is unclear, when the future seems uncertain, and when fear rises up to try and take hold of your heart. But in those moments, I encourage you to turn to faith. Choose to trust that God is with you. Choose to believe that His timing is perfect, even when it doesn't make sense to you. And when you do, you will experience the peace that comes from knowing that He is in control and that He will lead you through every storm and into His perfect plan for your life. In the face of overwhelming circumstances, remember, faith over fear is the path to peace, the path to victory, and the path to the promise that God has prepared for you. Trust in His timing, because it is always the right time. Waiting is often one of the hardest things we have to endure in life. We live in a world where instant gratification is the norm. Everything from food to information is available at the push of a button. So when we are forced to wait, it can feel frustrating, discouraging, and even defeating. But the truth is, waiting is not a waste of time. In fact, waiting is often a period of growth, refinement, and preparation for the next chapter in our lives. Think about the process of a seed growing into a tree. It doesn't happen overnight. The seed must be planted in the soil, where it remains hidden from sight. It faces the darkness of the earth and the uncertainty of its future. But beneath the surface, it is undergoing a process of transformation. The seed is developing roots that will nourish it, preparing it to one day break through the soil and reach toward the light. The waiting period is not wasted, it is an essential part of the process. Without it, the seed would never grow into the tree it was meant to be. In the same way, waiting is a period where God works in us and prepares us for what is to come. When we find ourselves in seasons of waiting, we often focus on what's not happening. We focus on the unanswered prayers, the dreams that haven't come to fruition, or the opportunities that seem to have passed us by. But instead of seeing waiting as a time of inactivity, we should recognize it as a time of preparation. God is working behind the scenes, shaping our character, building our faith, and preparing us for the next chapter of our journey. Consider the story of the Israelites in the wilderness. They were promised the land of Canaan, a land flowing with milk and honey. But before they could enter that land, they had to wait. They wandered in the desert for 40 years, facing hardships, challenges, and moments of doubt. From a human perspective, it might seem like a time of delay, a time of frustration. But in reality, it was a time of growth and preparation. God was not only testing their faith, but He was also teaching them how to rely on Him. He was teaching them how to trust in His provision, how to follow His commands, and how to prepare their hearts to inherit the promises He had for them. Similarly, the period of waiting you may be experiencing right now is not meaningless. You may feel as though you are stuck in a holding pattern, waiting for something to change. But in reality, God is doing a deep work in you. He is refining you, pruning you, and strengthening you for what is ahead. Take, for example, the story of David. Before he was crowned king, he spent years in the wilderness, hiding from King Saul. During this time, David was not only learning how to survive, but also how to lead. He was learning how to be a man of courage, integrity, and faith. His time in the wilderness was not wasted. It was God's preparation for the great calling that was ahead of him. When the time came for David to step into his role as king, he was ready. His waiting season was actually the time of growth and preparation he needed to fulfill his purpose. In the same way, God often uses our waiting seasons to build our character and to prepare us for the new opportunities and responsibilities He has in store for us. Waiting is not a sign that God is not listening or that He has forgotten us. Instead, it is an opportunity for us to grow in our trust in Him, to deepen our relationship with Him, and to prepare our hearts to receive what He has promised. It's important to remember that growth often happens in the hidden places. Just as the seed grows beneath the soil, much of the work God does in our lives happens in the unseen moments. We may not be able to see the transformation happening on the surface, but that doesn't mean it's not taking place. God is shaping us, building our resilience, and equipping us with the wisdom and strength we need for the future. So when you find yourself in a season of waiting, don't view it as a setback or a delay. Instead, recognize it as an opportunity for growth. Use this time to focus on your personal development. Strengthen your faith. Build your character. Learn to trust God more deeply. Prepare yourself for the next chapter, knowing that God is using this time to get you ready for what He has in store. Remember, the waiting is never wasted. It is a time of growth, refinement, and preparation for something greater. Just as the seed becomes a tree, and the Israelites were prepared for the promised land, your waiting season is laying the foundation for the great things God has in store for you. Trust that the delay is not a denial, but rather a period of growth that will equip you for the future. The best chapters of your life are yet to come, and this waiting season is part of the process that will make you ready for them. Life is a fight. Every day presents challenges, obstacles, and moments that seem insurmountable. When things get tough, it's easy to feel like giving up, to throw in the towel and walk away. But I want to encourage you today, stay in the fight. Keep pressing forward, even when it feels like the darkness is closing in. Because it is often at the darkest moments, when everything seems lost, that your breakthrough is just around the corner. There is a powerful truth in the Bible that says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. This promise reminds us that no matter how long the night seems, it will eventually give way to the light. And that light often comes when we least expect it, when we are tired, when we feel defeated, and when we wonder if it's even worth continuing the fight. But I want to assure you that your breakthrough is closer than you think. And it often comes at the moment when you feel like you can't go on any longer. There are many examples in Scripture where people found their breakthrough at the darkest moments of their lives. Think about the story of Paul and Silas. They were beaten, thrown into prison, and locked in chains for preaching the gospel. From a human perspective, it seemed like all hope was lost. The night was dark, their bodies were bruised, and they had every reason to give in to despair. But instead of surrendering to defeat, they chose to praise God. They began to sing hymns, even in the midst of their suffering. And at the very moment when they thought all hope was gone, God sent an earthquake that shook the prison doors open and set them free. Their breakthrough came in the darkest hour when they were at their lowest point. Your breakthrough is often closer than you realize. It's easy to get discouraged when the storm seems endless, but you must remember that breakthroughs are birthed in the midst of trials. Think about the birth of a child. There's a period of pain and struggle, but it is followed by the joy of new life. Similarly, your breakthrough is the fruit of your perseverance, your faith, and your willingness to keep fighting when everything inside you says to quit. When we stay in the fight, we are demonstrating our trust in God's timing and faithfulness. It's easy to give up when we don't see an immediate solution, but God is always working behind the scenes. Sometimes we don't realize that He is using the struggle to strengthen us, to prepare us for the breakthrough that is coming. In fact, the very thing that feels like it is breaking you is often the very thing that is positioning you for your greatest victory. Think about the example of the bamboo tree. For the first 5 years, it seems as though nothing is happening. The tree grows underground, sending out roots and preparing for the growth that is to come. But after 5 years of waiting, the bamboo suddenly shoots up, growing several feet in a matter of weeks. While it seems like nothing was happening during those 5 years, the bamboo was actually being prepared for rapid growth. In the same way, your struggles and challenges may feel like they are taking longer than expected, but they are preparing you for the breakthrough that will come. There will be moments in your life when you want to quit, when you want to throw in the towel, and when the weight of the struggle seems too much to bear. But remember, these breakthroughs don't come by quitting. They come by staying in the fight. They come by pressing forward when you can't see the end. They come by choosing to believe that God is still working, even when you can't understand the process. When you feel like you can't go any further, that's the moment to dig deeper into your faith. That's the moment to remind yourself that the same God who parted the Red Sea for the Israelites, who delivered Daniel from the lion's den, and who raised Jesus from the dead is with you in your fight. He is faithful to see you through. He has a plan for your life. And no matter how difficult the journey may seem, He will not leave you stranded. In times of darkness, it's crucial to stay connected to your purpose. Remember why you started the fight in the first place. Don't let the setbacks and delays discourage you from the greater mission that God has placed on your heart. Whether it's your family, your career, or your calling, the purpose you are fighting for is worth every struggle. The breakthrough that's ahead of you is a part of God's greater plan for your life. Don't let the present hardship rob you of the future blessing. Staying in the fight requires resilience. It requires you to look beyond the current situation and keep your eyes fixed on the victory that is ahead. There will be days when it feels like you're not making any progress. You'll face moments when you feel like you've taken 2 steps forward only to be knocked 3 steps back. But even in those moments, know that you are not alone. Keep fighting, keep trusting, keep believing that your breakthrough is on its way. The breakthrough you are waiting for may be closer than you think. And in those final moments of the fight, when you feel like you can't go on, you are often on the verge of something great. Your breakthrough is not just about the end result, it's about the transformation that happens in you as you stay in the fight. You grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. You become the person who is ready to receive the blessings and victories that God has prepared for you. So no matter how dark it gets, no matter how heavy the burden feels, stay in the fight. Your breakthrough is on the way. Keep pressing forward, knowing that God is with you, and He will bring you through to victory. The darkest moments are often the prelude to the most powerful breakthroughs. Keep going, because your breakthrough is coming. As we come to the close of this moment, I want you to hear these words deep in your spirit: don't quit, because your breakthrough is nearer than you can imagine. You may be in a season of pain, in a moment of waiting, or facing challenges that seem insurmountable. But remember, it is often in these very moments that God is preparing you for something greater. Every delay, every obstacle, every painful experience is not a denial, it is divine preparation for the new chapter that is about to unfold in your life. The seasons of life are in constant motion, and just as the darkest night gives way to the dawn, your breakthrough will rise, and it will come at the moment you least expect it. Your faith in God's timing will open doors you never thought possible. Your vision will take you to places beyond your wildest dreams. And as you stay in the fight, refusing to give in to fear, you will discover that the very trials you thought would break you will become the foundation for your greatest triumphs. Understand this: the purpose of the waiting is not to break you, but to make you. God is shaping you, refining you, and preparing you for the greatness He has designed for your life. It may not be easy. It may not come on your schedule. But trust this truth: your breakthrough is not just a future promise, it is an inevitable reality for those who refuse to quit, who continue to fight, who stand firm in faith, and who hold fast to the vision God has placed in their hearts. So rise up today. Don't let the challenges define you. Don't let the setbacks stop you. Stay in the fight, knowing that the best chapter of your life is yet to be written. God is about to open a new door, a new chapter, and your destiny is waiting on the other side of your persistence. The world has not seen what God is about to do in and through you. Keep going, because your breakthrough is coming, and it will be worth every moment of the wait. Don't quit. God is about to open a new chapter for you.